Alright, this could be the longest intro to the podcast ever if I don't cut myself off and get into it. Let's talk about this. I am so excited to have finally found something that works for what I've been looking for this thing for so long. For those of you who have been watching the podcast, listening to my music for some time, you'll know that I'm running a stereo rig these days, which I hope you can hear wherever you're listening. I hope that is very apparent. So I'm running a stereo rig, which has obviously so many benefits in terms of the hugeness of the sound we're able to achieve on stage and in the studio, and then it has some drawbacks as well, because it's a lot more complicated to run a stereo rig, especially with bass, with monitoring. We've talked about that a bunch before. What has been completely impossible until now has been any kind of parallel routing. Yes, I know we're in America. Without the issues of phase, things being out of phase, and just basically having that feeling of your entire natural sound of the instrument being completely destroyed. I got to look up on the shelf for 1 second. No. Yes. Okay. Because I have a few props for this episode. You'll see we've got the overhead cam working. And this whole situation of parallel routing is sort of multi-layered. And yeah, we're just going to get into it all. And I'm going to talk to you about the Wetter box by thegigrig.com. Dan, right? It's Dan and Mick, that pedal show. I'm sure you know those guys from their massively successful YouTube channel, and wildly informative and very entertaining. They casually have some of the best guests, even though I know it's a guitar-centric channel. I'm a big fan, have been for a long time. Always try and set aside some time to watch their videos. And here we are, something that Dan, it is, I've got to get this one English guy, one Australian, I've got to get the names right. I'm pretty sure it's Dan. Dan is the Gigrig, as far as I know. That's his company. And those big switching systems you've seen, like unbelievable. Like, what did I watch recently? It wasn't such a switching system thing, but I think it was like a Robin Ford. Maybe that was where I was looking at the Wetter box. Man, there's so many pedal videos, as I'm sure you're all aware and involved in, that it is hard to keep track of. But anyway, out of watching all that stuff, came the realization that maybe there was one thing I hadn't tried yet, and that is the Wetterbox. I'm going to explain what I was just doing and how all that works, and how it might, more importantly, how it might help you if you use effects. Even if you don't run in stereo, you don't have to run in stereo for this to work, because that's another amazing feature of the Wetterbox, is it runs both stereo and mono via TRS, or via TRS if you want to run stereo. Let's see. Let's talk about the things I've tried to use in the past. I've got to give a very positive shout out to Earthquaker Devices, because this does that thing. This has 2 loops in it. Can I get it in the camera there? Maybe it'll focus over here. The Earthquaker Devices Swiss things. It really is a Swiss Army knife of a pedal, and it did do that thing. It had 2 loops, and could I put them both on at the same time? Good question. Or was it just a switching? Maybe I could have them both on and run parallel. I don't remember. What I do remember, when I was using it for a long time on my board before I switched to a stereo signal path, was that it did what I wanted it to, and there was no phasing. There were no phasing issues, no phase problems on that. And it really is a Swiss Army knife of a pedal. One thing I will say is it's quite large, and it is mono, so for my purposes now, it's not the most ideal thing. I also don't doubt that it will make a comeback on a mono board at some point, when I need to run something really simple in 2 different loops, and also have a tuner out, or just sort of do the things that this pedal does. I'm sure I'll be using it again. It's not like it's been retired forever. It's just not my main thing now. But I wanted to give a shout out to Earthquaker Devices, because not only did they send me this very kindly when I asked for it, it actually served me very well on many boards for a couple of years, as you will have seen. Made a full video for it. I'll try and remember to link to that in the show notes, because it is a useful pedal. So shout out to those guys. Fantastic job. Now, when it comes to the Autobit Junior, this has been sort of my nemesis for so long, because the very talented people and musical people at Meris, who obviously they make some of the greatest pedals out there. I've been a fan of the Autobit forever. I love their reverb and their delay algorithms. They sound incredible. They just make, as you are well aware, I'm sure, they make really great products, really musical and great sounding stuff. But the Autobit Junior doesn't have a freaking blend option. There's no mix knob, which sucks. If you play it full wet, and if I do that, actually we can, it's great. First use of the Wetterbox right here to make an explanation. If I engage the Autobit and only have the side of the Wetterbox that the Autobit is in, I have no through signal natural sound of the bass there. It's completely affected by the Autobit. And because there's no blend, if we do, if we set a tempo here, so I'm playing I'm playing 8th notes. Now, don't get me wrong, those are very cool stutters and weirdness that this thing does, and I love it for that. But I also want to be able to play through that. I want to retain some sense of the natural sound of the bass, or whatever I'm playing through the Autobit. And every time the Autobit engages the stutter function, it completely wipes out what I'm playing on the bass. That has always been an issue. When I had the mono board, I was using, what is this? This is the Mosquito by, is this what are they called? One Control, I think is the name of the company. Let's see if I can get it to focus there. This was my God damn, this old camera has the worst autofocus. This is just such great TV. Okay, whatever. It's the One Control Mosquito. It's a little parallel path pedal, and it allowed me to blend as much or as little as I wanted of the Autobit into my signal chain. But again, that meant the whole board was in series. Everything was one pedal into another, essentially, with this one thing in the loop, the Autobit. And it meant I needed to have an extra pedal on the board just for utility, to do something that really should have been built into the Autobit. I never understood the 6-step sequencer. sort of a weird number of steps to have in a sequencer with most modern music. Yeah, I think a lot of people, if they use it at all, will find themselves would want to use either 4 or 8 or 16 or some sort of combination of groups of 4. So I never understood why there had to be a 6-step sequencer and why there couldn't be a blend knob. That has always been a gripe of mine with the Autobit, but we are not here to shit all over mirrors, because at the end of the day, I love them. There's just one thing missing on that pedal, and I've needed a solution for it now. So that was the solution in mono mode. I also have, do I have it out here? Oh, yes, I do. 1 second. For a while, I was also using this very cool custom jam pedals, parallel looper. It does the same thing as the Mosquito, but they custom built this one for me in this super nice color, really nice blend knob as well on top. I was using that one as well. So I've used various parallel loop pedals. This is not my first rodeo when it comes to these things. But again, amazing pedal, no phasing issues, but mono. So obviously we're moving into a much different lane here. And now we get to the stereo thing. I had this for the longest time. I'll throw that on there in the hopes that it will focus. That is the Exotic Effects. What the hell is it called? It is the Stereo X Blender. I had the mono one as well. Yeah, I've got the mono one up on the shelf up there. But Stereo X Blender, it's got a ton of ins and outs on the back, highly configurable, 2 channels. Phasing issues. So as analog and as chunky and as simple, and as I already had it for many years, I thought that was going to be the solution. It was not. Serious phase issues with that, and I don't know why. In fact, I don't understand why on most of these pedals there are phasing issues. We should also talk briefly about my beloved HX Stomp. Not in shot, but down here on the old pedal board, which I'm in the process of taking apart. They have obviously auxiliary blocks. If you're familiar with the HX Stomp, it has auxiliary blocks, so you can theoretically put an effects loop, patch that into the HX Stomp. I thought, oh, that's great. I'll just throw the Autobit Junior in parallel loop and use it on a block, trigger it on and off whenever I want it. I'll be able to control all the parameters. Fantastic. Nope, that had phasing issues as well. So that was the Stereo X Blender. The HX Stomp, no bueno. Really didn't work. Then I had such high hopes for this. Shout out to Hondo for sending this over. This was just... I really thought this was going to be the thing, the Duophony by GFI Systems. Again, another company that I really love. What is that reverb that I've had of theirs before? The stereo reverb delay. It's really cool. They make just some amazing pedals. I really thought the Duophony was going to be the one. Watched a bunch of videos about it online, but again, I haven't mentioned this so far in the episode. What I hadn't seen really anyone talk about was any of this stuff for bass. You always see it in guitar and maybe some keyboard things, but not really. It's really these are really aimed at guitar players and demoed, and content made by guitar players online. I don't think bass players think that often about the benefits of running stuff in parallel. And obviously when we get into my setup here with the Wetterbox, I'm not the traditional running 2 different fuzzes or running the octave and the fuzz either side and blending them. That's not really what I'm looking at it as. It's far more soundscapey and ambient for me. But either way, I am a bass player and I am using effects and I am running a parallel path. So it is, insert your desired blended effects into this situation and it will work exactly the same. But back to the GFI Systems Duophony, no good. Absolute, just, I hate to say it, but really garbage sound for the bass. Once I put the bass through it and engage the Duophony, even with, this has phase cancellation options and all kinds of stuff in there. They were definitely thinking about that being an issue, and about we should build something in case there's phase issues. Didn't work. It just simply didn't work. And I don't know if that is the nature of the frequency in which my instrument exists, and it doesn't exist in a guitar. I don't know why thousands or tens of thousands of people, guitar players specifically, have not complained about the HX Stomp auxiliary blocks being pointless because there are phase issues. Maybe they just don't hear the phase issues because of the range of the instrument. I don't know. But for sure, the bass worked in literally none of these things that I've shown you so far in terms of the stereo stuff, the duophony, the X blender. And I don't know whether that's also a stereo thing now that I'm thinking about it, because the ones I said, the Swiss things is in mono, and that worked fine without any phasing. So I don't know if that's a stereo thing, and they're just... But anyway, enough of all that. Those are the things I've used. You may have seen me talking about them, heard me talk about them in videos on the podcast here. What I'm using now and what is actually working without destroying the natural sound of my bass is the Wetterbox by Gigrig. I'm going to disengage rather the two pedals I have in each side. In channel A, I have the Mood Mark II, this little purple one over here, and in the B side, I have the Autobit, the Meris Autobit Junior. This is a really simple setup because I only got the Wetterbox yesterday, and these are literally the first two things I tried blending. So my bass is going straight into the Wetterbox, mono in, and then over here it's heading out stereo into the Cornerstone Nucleo. That's where you're hearing this big, nice big reverb, nice big stereo reverb from. And then that's going into the canvas, the Walrus Audio stereo canvas, which is going out into my system. And that's it. Really simple setup. And, you know, if I disengage the Wetterbox, to me, that's amazing. Like, how crazy is it that I find so much joy in pressing a button and nothing changing? Like, really, we want to get pedals where we press buttons and turn knobs and amazing things happen to the sound. The fact that nothing happens to my sound when I engage this pedal, when everything's, you know, disengaged in each loop, is... I honestly didn't think I was going to find it. And I didn't even bother. I knew about the Wetterbox, and I was like, it's not cheap. You know, I mean, nothing's cheap. And of course, you pay for what you get. It's a high quality piece of gear. By the way, Gigrig, not a sponsor of the video. I don't know Dan, or I have no affiliation with those guys. Great admirer of them, of course, and long-time listener, first-time caller, or first-time user, I should say. So it's not like I didn't know about the Wetterbox. Unfortunately, and this is my bad, I should not do this, I'd unfortunately sort of written it off as, do I really need to try another thing? Like, as you can see, I've tried a lot of things, and a lot of expensive things, and a lot of things that on paper should absolutely have worked. And my bad for being closed-minded and just kind of putting the Wetterbox in that category subconsciously, I guess, and being like, oh, do I really want to? It's like, okay, it's not $1,000, but it's also not $45. You know, it's a serious piece of gear for a serious price point. I think they're around $300 or $330, so it's not an insignificant amount of money. I think the fact that it works and it does all these things, actually kind of reasonably priced, you know. But I just put it into that category of, I'm not spending another $300 on something that, you know, in my mind, kind of maybe probably won't work. Eventually, I was like, actually, you know what? I need something I need to find the solution, and I haven't found it yet, so I have to keep going. You know, I can always sell it again afterwards if it doesn't work. I sort of got to that point. And then one came up at Perfect Circuit. I was like, bam, I'm jumping on it. It's my local store. I love to support those guys. I've always been curious about trying kind of actually anything from Gigrig. I don't really have a need for a big switching system, but they make a ton of other stuff. I've always been curious to hold the piece of gear in my hand, check it out, see what it's like. So boom, I just pulled the trigger and did it. And what do you know? Again, the revelation that nothing happens when you press the button. Unbelievable. And feature-wise, it has a bunch of stuff. We're going to get into it. It does have a phase button, has a pair of separate gains for each channel, this big blend knob on top. eventually, because it has these extra two features, two things I'm not using right now just because it's on the desktop and I'm experimenting with it, I don't really need it. Eventually I want to hide this under the pedal board and have a remote switch to turn it on and off, and have an expression pedal to replace this big knob on the top here to blend between the two. And there is a blend or a mix option, like a selector button here, which we'll get into later. I only just realized that before I started filming this episode. So as you can see, all very new to me. Before I engage the two pedals, I just want to address the fact that having done this for so long with the podcast, I am fully aware that sometimes I'll play something like this, and perhaps, I hope you guys go check out this whole concept of parallel routing and maybe even the Wetterbox or something that works for you. But perhaps the piece of gear that I'm talking about in the video isn't the thing that grabs people's attention. It's actually maybe the chord sequence or the way of playing these chords. And I get a dozen questions about, hey, what is that voicing and how do you do that? So I'm coming prepared this time. I am planning to play a lot of chords, as I did in the intro, and as I'm going to do to explain some of this stuff, because that's kind of the context that I want to use it in. And they are all in, shameless plug here, they're all in chordal harmony. This is volume 1. There's actually volume 2 as well. They come together in a bundle if you want to get them both together and save a little bit of money. The volume 2 is maybe a little bit more weighted to chord voicings, but this is the one that kind of gets you in the door. Chordal harmony volume 1 is linked below in the description of the video. Physical copies like this, I do them signed and I ship them worldwide, or you can get digital copies and you can bundle books together and save money when you buy more than one. So I just wanted to make sure, if you have questions about the chords and sort of the content, the musical content I'm using today, it's kind of coming from this chordal harmony, Bass Player's Guide to the Galaxy, chordal harmony, a comprehensive guide to chords on bass. We're sort of doing a lot of things that aren't necessarily immediately associated with bass, stereo parallel looping and chords. But even just with that big reverb, stereo reverb at the end, we already have a vibe, right? So there's our sort of foundation, there's our starting point. Now, what the Wetterbox allows me to do, and it's going to allow me to do it in so many different ways, is either blend or mix between two different pedals in parallel rather than series. Maybe a quick refresher on what parallel and go check out Josh Scott at JHS Pedals. Go check out Dan at the Gigrig talking about it on their page. I'll try and link to as many videos as I can to share the love and to point you in the direction of people who can do a lot better job of explaining the technical details of what goes into parallel versus series, and actually what goes into these pedals and what makes it happen. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, I'll link some things below in the description of the video or in the show notes of the podcast. But a quick refresher of series and parallel. Very simply put, series is one pedal into another pedal, all the way down, bass in, then pedal, bass out into the amp. That's series. Parallel is where you can put, which is what I'm doing here, is where you can put the bass in and then split that out into two channels, go into two different sides, a left and a right, or whatever, just two different pedals, and my natural signal of the bass affects only the Franta bit in this case on one side and the ephemeron on the other, and then it comes out of that and combines together without them being commingled in series. That's a pretty lousy job of explaining it, I think, but basically you don't get, I think the classic one is like reverbs and delays, right? When you want to separate those things, or perhaps actually what I was saying there, the Franta bit and the ephemeron, where I really want to have quite separate sounds and have one not affecting the other. Maybe I don't want the fuzzy bit crushed sample reduction thing affecting that sort of pristine synth sound of the FM run, or vice versa. So we split those into parallel, and then they come out kind of mixed really nicely, but not mixed like right on top of each other. As I'm saying it, I'm like, just go listen to Josh Scott or Dan or someone do a much better job. And far easier for me is to just do it and show you. So in one side, I'm going to go completely wet on channel A, so we're only dealing with the mood. So I can make an example of bringing in the auto bit after the fact, because with the wetter box engaged, I'm playing these two notes, and I've got it all the way on channel A, on the mood channel. If I swung it over the other side, you'd hear the pretty aggressive, pretty loud in the mix, but you'd hear the auto bit, and I don't want that when I'm creating sort of the initial loop here. So I haven't, as you can see, I haven't changed anything on the auto bit. I'm just dealing with the wetter box. Now, the mood, as you may or may not know, is a micro looper. So it's constantly listening to everything I play for a certain amount of time. I'm actually going to turn the reverb off, so all we get. Oh, I blew it. Hang on. Where is it? Why is it not working? Great. What have I? Oh, because I have the volume of the pedal down. My bad. See, user error. Okay, so basically it was listening to what I played. If I turn down the volume of that, it was listening to me playing that. Then it captured it. And you can hear the spread that's going left to right. So everything is in stereo here, which is fantastic. So we have this stereo loop. Now I'm going to put that through a little bit of reverb. Give it some space. I'm doing that at the end of the chain with the Nucleo, although I could do it inside the mood and run reverb or delay or slip on the other channel. But I'm going to do it in the end so everything kind of is in the same space. Now we're full wet on the mood side, and I can play. I can now play chords over that. Now, if I want to think about maybe having something a little more rhythmic, I can start to blend in. Of course, I can still adjust all the parameters on the auto bit. I don't have to have the bit crusher on or the sample rate reducer, and I don't have to use the filter. Also completely get rid of the mood or vastly reduce the volume of it. Of course, what I run into there is going full wet with the auto bit, which takes us back to that thing of like, you know, if I'm playing eighth notes and I'm full wet, every time the auto bit engages, then it takes away what I'm playing on the instrument. So it's a balance, and there is a tiny bit of compromise, but the fact that I can blend in basically anything I want to either side is massive. You know, of course I'm going to experiment with synth stuff, with harmonizer stuff, all those kind of things. I'm going to experiment with putting multiple pedals in either side. and just seeing where my comfort level with the whole tap dancing routine is. Something like this to me has the potential to be useful in reducing the amount of tap dancing you have to do, and the amount of sort of thinking and remembering where everything is. This is more like a roadmap, so I don't get lost in the pedal board, so I kind of have really quite instant access to all the sounds I want when I'm improvising. That's the most important thing about it to me. Not just the sound and obviously the sound quality and the having figured out the phasing issues and all that stuff. It's really about instant access to the sounds I want when I'm improvising. So there's no gap in the thought process. When I'm really in the middle of being creative, I don't want there to be just, oh crap, where's the thing that I need over there, and I ought to have too much mix and this, that, and the other. I want a very simple set of controls. So it might stay like this, as I say, with one pedal in either side. It could expand. We could definitely see maybe the HX Stomp going in the same side as the Mood, perhaps. And creating a little effects loop of two things. Maybe there's something else in there as well that I'm not even thinking about right now. And maybe I leave just the auto bit in the other side. There are a lot of ways to do it, but I think I've really opened a door that is leading down a path or a hallway that is like, oh, there are a lot of other things down here that are now possible because of the fact that the natural sound of my instrument is so intact. And here's the thing. If you're out there, you ever happen to see this or want to leave a comment, could you tell us why yours works and everyone else's doesn't? I'd love to know. Like the technical nerd in me would love to know more technical nerdy things, and I'd love to know why yours works and why the same. I'm guessing it's not proprietary. I'm guessing this thing should work. Not diminishing your creativity or uniqueness in what you make, but I'm guessing it's something that is just part of all the layers of gear. That's one thing you build into all of your products, and most people do. So why is this a bass specific thing? I'd love to know that. Is that why guitar players haven't complained about all these other devices that simply don't work? Because they don't exist in that frequency range. I don't know. I'd really like to know. Also, is it a thing where the sound is so wet normally for people that there's less emphasis on the dry signal being decimated? I don't know. There are so many questions. It'd make for an interesting interview and a conversation on a podcast, actually. It'd be nice to get Dan on here. And I kind of a bit of a mission going forwards is to talk to more pedal builders. And I have a few things coming in from around the world that I'm sort of excited to try out. And it'll be interesting to get those builders. Some of them are very small, some of them are quite big. Be interesting to get their thoughts and their perspective on what it takes to make something and what goes into that thought process. Is there a standard checklist for pedal builders? We have to have that, we have to have this, and the other things, 5 or 6 things must have that. And why did nobody put, what the Wetterbox was able to do? Why did nobody put that on their checklist for all these other duophony and the stereo X blender? Again, is it you bloody guitar players? Is that what it is? I'd love to know. Now, if we get away from the stutter, we'll make a different loop, but we'll get into maybe some crushing some bits. See, it's that easy, that quick to make a little micro loop, and maybe we won't be so aggressive with the reverb. When you pitch it down, that's kind of crazy. Sorry, we just went off into like some weird sci-fi movie world. Maybe we go with a much bigger reverb. And perhaps blend in. Where are we at here? Okay, I don't have trails on. There are a couple of different modes. You can fire the gigrig up with the blue. You'll see here the blue light, and if you take the power out, hold the button down, put the power back in, and hold it for 3 seconds, it will flash red. Then you're in trails mode. Trails obviously meaning spillover. Once you turn the box off, whatever's still spilling over from those effects will continue to decay. Or in the case of the mood, the micro looper will still run. So that that's why I have it in true bypass rather than trails, just because of the setup I'm using. If I had delay and reverb that were not sort of self-oscillating, whatever, they weren't just infinite, I would have the trails on. And then you also have this blend/mix. So right now I have it where that's just the mood, and if I put it all the way over to the other side, that's just the Auto Bit Junior. Okay, so that I guess is mix. You mix one or the other, and if we put it in blend mode, I believe it keeps channel A. Yeah, channel A at the same volume no matter where I put the mix knob, but it blends in as much or as little of the auto bit as I want. In this particular setup, that might actually be the most useful, especially as I'm using the mood as more of a micro looper thing that I want consistent level on, albeit this is a very subtle loop. As I reopen my computer here for a second, it's sort of hovering away there. If you're in the car or there's any kind of background noise, you're going to be hearing silence right now. That's quite a subtle loop. But I dig that. I dig the stretching and the time stuff you can do with the mood. Maybe we'll put another grab another little micro loop. So kind of reverse stuff and granular stuff. Welcome to Gwizdala's Palace of Weirdness. So, infinite amounts of fun to be had if you're that much of an ambient nerd. And what I'm also noticing is that there are elements of the clean sound still in existence in the wetter box. So I have to look at the where I would want to have the natural gain of the instrument. I'm guessing you can set it wherever you want it, at 0 and just have all wetter box, or have it at unity gain with your effects. Just so many options with these two gain knobs for A and B. I believe that's how you do it, engaged and disengaged and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you can read the instruction manual if you get one. I still need to read a bunch of it. I think one of the next experiments will be to run a couple of different mono things in loops and see how we get on. And this also has stereo in and stereo out. Even though it's a single 1/4 inch in, you can switch to stereo and use a TRS, which I think is fantastic. Just very utility orientated all round, and something that with the two remote things, with the expression in and the remote switch in, can be hidden. It doesn't it doesn't have to take up a ton of space on the on the user facing area of the pedal board. Now, it's not the tiniest pedal ever. You can see it like right next to the Mood Mark II, that it's just a little wider. Maybe it's the same. It's a tiny bit wider, tiny bit taller, but there's a lot going on in there. Sort of wish I knew more about exactly what it was. Maybe one day I'll get to have a conversation with the builder and sort of dissect it. I'm gonna guess it's like one of the simplest things they do, or maybe they have like a patch bay or something I think I've seen, which is a little simpler. But when you look at the complexity of those, the G1 and G2, G3, those big switching systems that Gigrig do, it's probably one of the simpler pedals out there, but it's the one I'm most fascinated with. It's the one that's given me the most amount of sort of musical power right now. And yeah, like I said, I'll try and link everything I possibly can in the comments below, in the show notes, including, of course, all the books. Chordal harmony, especially pertinent today, because I was playing a lot of chords, a lot of voicings, a lot of triad stuff. That's really important. I'm not about to go on a rant as to how important that stuff is for bass players, whether you play chords or whether you play meat and potatoes. But very briefly, it helps inform my note selection as a bass player beyond anything you can imagine. Just being in control of major and minor triads in their three, root, first inversion, second inversion, all over the neck of the instrument, and having access to different parts of the harmony. Like as bass players, we're so powerful with what we can do with the harmony, how we can change it, how we can take, if the chord is C major, let's not work in C. I hate it when people do that. Sorry. Let's take, if the chord is E flat, the fact that we can also play here and here and it's still functioning as E flat, but knowing that a G and a B flat, which you might associate with being more G minor, is actually just part of that triad from E flat first inversion. I'm probably missing saying flats, and no, I always do that. My dyslexia pops in and I forget to say the flat. So we're in E flat. Maybe that's why I should always do it in C. When you have a G and a B flat, for instance, a minor 10th, you associate that with G minor, but it's actually just part of two components of a E flat major triad. Gives you all this access to other colors, and then the sky's the limit when you start combining that. Reverb was a little aggressive with the 4 chord, just E flat and A flat, 1-4. Same root, different chord, E flat major, A flat major, but second inversion triad. And then, whoa, get the 5 chord in as well. And suddenly with just 1, 4, and 5, you know, chords that is that like millions of songs have been written over. Suddenly, you have so many more options. You go from 3 triads to 9, because you have 1, 2, 3 on the 1 chord, 1, 2, 3 on the 4 chord, and 1, 1, 2, 3 on the 5 chord, and combinations. And then you're really not far away to some really spicy, crunchy stuff. And that's only major. Imagine you go minor, yeah. Anyway, that's enough of that. Less of a rant, more of a lesson, I guess. That's all in chordal harmony. That's something I'm working on all the time. That's something that's very much a part of my bass playing, as much as it is my chordal playing, my solo playing, my linear playing, all of that stuff. Really something I like to recommend and love to see younger players getting into as early as possible. And also, it's never too late to learn some new stuff. I've been working on Neo-Riemannian triadic transformations, something that's newer to me in the last couple of years. The name is way more complicated than the sound of what it does, but it does make for some very pretty transformations, triadic transformations, and it's just major and minor triads, and you can go so many places. Just by moving 1 note or 2 notes at a time. Anyway, that's for another day. Enjoy parallel routing if that's something that interests you, and now you have proof that the Wetterbox does it. Again, not a sponsor of the channel. I'm just a big fan. As you all know, I like to make cool sounds with cool stuff, and this one doesn't actually make any sounds, and I haven't been happier for a very long time with a piece of gear. Just on and off. Oh, my pedal is still engaged, but on and off, and no change, no phasing issues. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Gigrig. And thank you all for spending some of your insanely precious time hanging out with me, nerding out about pedals, about parallel routing, about chords, and about music in general. I'll see you cats on the next one.